Welcome back to The Mind, the Mirror, and Me, the podcast where a 23-year-old hairstylist takes on mental health, self-love, solitude, and more. I'm impressed every time I get that
It's
saying
impressive.
without reading.
It is. Hey, how offended have you been when I haven't remembered the order of the mind, the mirror, and me at first? I have it down.
Do you really have it down though? Because you have said some silly things when we've talked about episode
No,
several.
and I didn't mean
The
it to
heart,
sound
the soul.
dismissive. And
Silly.
but it's the mind, the mirror, me, which this brings up a good question, although I've cut into your intro, Mac.
That's okay.
So this week when we were talking about recording today, I feel as if you said a few times, hey, and if you're busy, I could do it myself. And so then I noticed the mind, the mirror, and me, not the mind, the mirror, and us. I don't know, just kind of putting pieces together. Was the goal to just use me for my podcasting equipment while you were here? Now you've got your own. So are you good?
Yeah, you can actually just hop off of this right now. I actually don't need you here.
Okay. I see how it is. All right.
No, I said I could do it on my own just in case you were busy, because you're a busy guy.
Okay. But I enjoy this. And the feedback was really nice. It really was.
It
Did
was
you get,
really nice.
yeah.
I did. I got quite a few messages that were very nice.
I have interesting things I want to share with you very quickly.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Okay. So I don't even want you to see the stats because I became a little bit obsessed with my stats early on. And I think most podcasters are.
Yeah.
So if you ever want to know the stats, I'm just going to make them up for you, or I'm going to not show you how to log in and get the stats. Is that okay?
Cool. Works for me.
But here's a really fascinating one. Somebody listened in every state, and then you had people listening in over a dozen countries, including places like Chad not a guy named Chad, or maybe his name's Chad, but the country of Chad in Africa. Yeah, who knows? Or like small countries throughout Europe and in the Middle East, and they're just random people that listen. How's that? Is that fun?
It's pretty crazy. I'm honored.
It is cool. Okay. There's your fun stat facts for the day. So back to you, Mac.
Okay, so I kind of told you what we're talking about today, and that is the topic of the body, which suggested that you tried to make a little funny there.
What did I say?
You were like, oh, we're going to talk about periods?
Oh, I did. Okay, I did, because I was coming from this place of when people... here's what's funny, Mac. When we were talking, I think earlier that day, I thought about this later now that you say that. I was talking with a newlywed couple, and we were talking about how neither one of them had ever even talked about, they never had the talk from their parents, the old birds and the bees or any of that sort of thing. And I remember as a therapist being pretty surprised with how few people talk about it at all. And then I remember, this is kind of funny, I don't know if you remember that talk.
Oh, vividly.
This is what was, okay, that same reaction when I've talked to some of your siblings where mom and I thought, man, we nailed that thing. And it was the greatest thing ever. And not realizing that, yeah, that vividly, that maybe is there a good way to have that talk?
A bit traumatizing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I think that was in my head.
Yeah, but before anyone hears that and just runs off and freaks out, we're not talking about the body in that sense.
Yeah.
No, this is not a
birds and bees.
Yeah, no, none of that. So just throw that out the window because that will not come up again. I promise. Okay. If you're just violently uncomfortable right now from hearing any of those things. But we want to talk about the body more in the sense that your body is the least interesting thing about you.
This concept, Mackie, when you were saying this, I've never thought of it this way. This is fascinating to me.
It's not something that is said a lot, I think, today with social media, like just content, things like that. Not a lot of people are throwing out this idea that your appearance is the least interesting thing about you, and it doesn't hold as much weight as I think we like to act like it does. And that's not to say you're not allowed to care about your body or what you look like, because you are. And, this is all coming from somebody who like loves her fake tan and her extensions and her eyelashes, and who struggles with this a lot and does care a lot about appearance, or has at certain points. And there is nothing wrong with being healthy and taking care of your body and customizing the way that you look to feel good, because there is the whole concept that when you look good, you tend to feel good, or at least a little bit better.
Yeah.
No, we're going to leave space for that here, because that is a thing. It is good to take care about your body and to put effort in there and to try to be healthy, because your body is what carries you through this life. So it is good. We're leaving space for that. But you are so much more than all of that. The factors of your appearance and what you look like and what size you are and, what shape your nose is and like
Mm-hmm.
all the little tiny things that we get really insecure about. You are more than that.
Well, I just think it's a great example of, I know in our family, people say that you got one nose or the other nose, and I can't remember which nose you guys want, but then it's funny because to me, I never really noticed. So I think it maybe even is that example of you're aware of your nose, but other people may not be. So it really may be the least interesting thing, but how much emotional calories can you burn worrying about your nose?
Exactly. And about all these little insecurities you might have that other people literally never notice or have never thought about or have never used against you or used to diminish your value in any way. No, that's a great point where it doesn't matter. Because I mean, if we're going to stay on noses, super insecure about my nose and always have been. And nobody cares. Nobody looks at
No.
me and goes, yikes, the nose is not a
Okay,
thing.
and I know this is going to sound almost like just a life coach vibe, but and if they do, honest to goodness, that's a them issue, and it should be a little bit of a red flag.
Yeah, no, and that's very true. And so it doesn't matter as much as we maybe make it out to matter
Mm-hmm.
in our minds. I was doing some research before this episode because I was just curious about the numbers because I assumed they weren't great. I assumed that I wasn't the only one that has been insecure about my body or my size or the way I look or anything like that. But I was honestly kind of shocked by how intense the numbers are. So these studies that I was reading, they were taken from group like 50,000 adults. And in women, 60% of women were self conscious about their weight, whether that was feeling too heavy or too small. 30% of those women reported feeling really uncomfortable in a swimsuit or even too uncomfortable to wear a swimsuit. And 20% just plain thought they were unattractive. And then in men, again, a group of 50,000, 41% of men were self conscious about their weight, 16% uncomfortable in a swimsuit, and 11% thought that they were unattractive, which are big numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think in my head, I thought there have to at least be a good amount of people that are just feeling pretty good all around and don't have those insecurities, but that's obviously not the reality. In children, 50% of 13-year-old girls report being unhappy with their body,
Oh,
which is insane.
that's
Like
sad.
13-year-olds. And that number grows to almost 80% by the time they're 17. So we're saying then about 80% of 17-year-old girls are unhappy with their bodies, which is so sad.
It's really
And
sad because that's a time where the brain is still
right,
evolving and you're creating the what it feels like to be you, and it's during that time that it can start to really feel like, okay, I'm ugly, I'm not enough, I'm all these things, and that
right,
becomes
from
part of that
such a young
internal
age.
narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there were quite a few studies that kind of tied this into like mental health and the way that people felt about their bodies, how that affected their mental health. And it's like I was so shocked, like the massive numbers of people that refrain from doing things that they want to
Yeah.
do or like participating in activities or going for certain things in their life because of the way that they feel about their appearance. And then with that, the number of people that, because of the way they feel about their body, have had suicidal thoughts, increased
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, increased depression, all just due to body image. And it's sad. It's really sad. And it's something that I think is just, I mean, especially based off these numbers, is common.
Yeah.
It's something I deal with intensely. It's a big reason I wanted to talk about this because I do think it is such a big thing and something that people struggle with in one way or another.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the same exact way.
Okay, so from that mental health aspect to then when what it feels like to be somebody is feeling unattractive or worrying about their weight, and if they're not trying to get help for that, I just mean by seeing a therapist or being able to talk through these things, that when you keep things in your head and then you just ruminate and you worry, and then that's even more of what keeps you from doing. And the more that you are ruminating and worrying, I think we talk about this often. We talked about it in the last episode too, that those are all wasted emotional calories. And so then, but the more you do it, the more that's what it feels like to be you. And here's the big thing about therapy. If you're talking to a friend and you say, I don't feel like I look very good in a swimsuit. And if your friend says, that's ridiculous, you look fine. This is where they're telling you you're wrong, which is
Mhm.
ironic because it sounds like the right thing to say. But so then we start to even feel like, okay, well, I already know the answer I'm going to get. Or if I say I don't feel good in a swimsuit and they don't say anything, then we think, well, they must agree. So that's such a difficult place to be. But then if you're able to express something to somebody and they're saying, man, tell me more about that, and what is that like for you, and how does that feel, and what do you then what our brain starts to do is say, okay, this thing that I have is scary in my head, and if I keep it in my head, it's going to continue to be scary. And if I express it to people that maybe aren't necessarily safe, and then they're going to either disagree with me, or they're by in essence agreeing with me because they aren't saying anything. There's just way too many things going on there that are going to continue to make me feel like i'm
Yeah, it doesn't
I'm
really feel like there's a good outcome there. So
no.
I think it's safer to just leave it here.
Mm-hmm.
But then yeah, it is just,
And I'll deal with it
in
later. And then
yeah,
meanwhile, how do I get rid of my discomfort with that? Well, then we go
right.
to unhealthy coping mechanisms, which can be a lot of times it can be food, or it can be starvation, or it can be our phones, or it can be gambling or porn or anything, to get
Yeah,
rid of that discomfort. And then,
yeah,
but I'll do everything different tomorrow. The old I'll do it later story.
right, right.
Yeah.
And then weirdly enough, usually tomorrow comes around and nothing really nothing
No,
really changes
exactly.
there. So basically then just a lot of people are being held back or negatively impacted purely based on the way that they feel just about their size or their appearance. And I think with that, just if you do struggle with body image or self confidence or self love or just feeling okay with your appearance in any way, you are so insanely not alone. And I think that we do live in like a day and age where it is so common. And I would assume that that's partially to do with social media and media content. I mean, we have this instant comparison at our fingertips
Yeah.
with our phones and with social media. And just the reality of it is that your worth doesn't come from the size of your jeans, and it has nothing to do with your body fat percentage or like the number is on the scale. That is not what makes you you in any way whatsoever. And I was thinking about this the other day when I was kind of putting together all my thoughts for this episode. And the question is just that if we lived in a world where there were no mirrors or no reflections or no social media, no pictures, where just appearances and sizes really did not matter, who would you want to be? And what would your personality look like? What traits or characteristics would you put more time and energy into having or working on, or would you hope to have, or what would you do with your life? Like what would your career goals be or your life goals? Who would you be in this world where none of these things mattered in any way? Because I think even if we say they don't matter, they still kind
Right.
of matter. I mean, for me, I was thinking of big kind of deeper things about what I would want to be doing or how I'd want to be kind of portraying myself or who I am, but also little tiny things like just outfits I've wanted to wear but didn't wear because I didn't like the way my stomach or my thighs or my arms or anything like that looked, or I've stopped going on my dating apps as often because I think
Mm-hmm.
about then the fact that I'd have to go on a date and they'd see me. They'd have to see what I looked
Mm-hmm.
like in person, and that's terrifying. But tell me, because I kind of threw that on you. So
Yeah.
please, I want to hear what that made you think of.
Well, 500 things. So I'll just cover the first 230 of them. So
Perfect.
sit back for a little bit. That concept is there's so many thoughts. First, it kind of breaks my brain a little bit because it's hard to not yeah but yourself. This is where I like to say, okay, yeah, it breaks my brain. It also makes me think of I feel like I am getting there, and I am a ripe young 53 years old, and I've had this figured out for months now, Mackie, as a mental health professional. So that's why I think this is so important to talk about these things now. So now I do have the facial hair that I used to think people would judge, or I do wear clothes that aren't therapist clothes necessarily in the therapy office, where I used to care and think, well, people might not want to come see me because I'm not wearing, I don't know, a suit and a tie and with the corduroy patches on my sleeves, or what a therapist is supposed to do. And I can't even believe that was the mindset that I had, where I was so worried about what other people would think or what they would say. And I think that you and I have talked before about I still remember when I was becoming a therapist and I went from this place of thinking, I'm not sure what to say, to what would a real therapist say right now? To then finally get into the place of, hey, you are a real therapist. To now it's just, oh, this is what I say. And I do use humor and I do enjoy this. And I'm not wearing the patches on my sleeves. And if they're saying, oh, well, I think you should be doing it differently, then I get to say, oh, I appreciate that. Thank you for your feedback. Now hit the bricks. I mean, I don't say that part out loud. So I just think it would be amazing to have that concept where if you, I hopefully people would just kind of be and do the things that they've wanted to be and do and wear the things they want to, and basically like exploring and experimenting of what they enjoy without worry of what people will tell them. Because I call that psychology the peanut gallery. Well, what do you think about this? So I'm asking somebody else to weigh in on what I've always wondered or been curious about for myself. And now, there's a couple of ways to look at that. The best answer might be for somebody to say, I'm not even really sure. You just kind of hit me with that. And I haven't really formed an opinion, but tell me what you're even looking for. Because sometimes people when they're put on the spot, they feel like I have to make a judgment. So they may say, yeah, I don't really think that looks good on you. And now all of a sudden, the thing that we wanted to do, we just asked somebody else to validate what we want to do. And then now we're going to base our worth and the things we're going to do moving forward based on the psychology of the peanut gallery.
You're bringing up a point that like I didn't even really think about when I was thinking about all of this, because I think this does also then lead into the whole idea that we feel as though we have to be a certain way, right? Which is what we're kind of talking about, but that goes past just the way we look physically, and it does then enter into who we are and what we feel like we're allowed to say or do or act like. Because I think I've found myself doing this before, where I feel like I can't say what my favorite thing is, or I don't want to express an opinion or something like that, because I have it so in my head that I have to be this perfect, like cookie cutter version of something. And if we could just be confident and like self-assured, then we could just be our authentic selves in all aspects and could look the way we want to look, or the way that we just do look, because we always have and always will look that way. But then also we could be authentic and have our personalities and not feel like we have to change that in any way for other people.
It's so true, Mackie. And this is where, to get a little bit nerdy, this concept, and I want to go to ChatGPT and find some cooler phrases to say instead of what I say constantly is everything becomes an opportunity to self-confront and grow. Just meaning that if I'm starting to be and do what feels right for me, which still feels scary because we're coming out of when you're a kid, you do need that guidance and you are looking for that validation and approval. So that's totally normal. But then we start to mature and we still feel like we need other people's approval and their validation. But we're the ones that are starting to come into our own and feel like we like certain things that we never knew we did, or we have liked those things, but we've been afraid to express that or watch that or eat that or wear that. And so then we're still it's part of who we are. The maturation process of saying, what do you think? But in reality, again, we're handing what could be something that matters to us over to somebody else. So then when they say, I don't like that, or I don't think so, then we get disappointed. And that's where, as a therapist, I just want to say, why did that person have so much power or influence? And even if it's because they're my parent, then it's like, oh man, and they did a great job. Now it's time for you. And so then when you look at that, everything's an opportunity to self-confront and grow. Then if somebody says, well, I don't like it, well, then I get to say, okay, I do. So now I'm starting to recognize the discomfort of continuing to do something, even if somebody else tells me that I can't. And that becomes empowering. And that is one of those things where you have to be intentional. You have to sit with that discomfort. Like we said last time, you have to do it anyway. And over time, you realize I'm alive and I'm still wearing the thing and I kind of like it. And actually, I can change this anytime I want. And that's where it starts to get kind of deep. And if you find yourself around more and more people that are saying, I don't think you should, or I think you should do this, and I don't like this, man, maybe that's too much emotional calories spent in trying to manage this relationship, where you also probably find yourself every now and again running into people that it's really easy to just be and do. And then that starts to feel more of the mutually reciprocal relationship versus that I have to prove myself to somebody else. Because that, oh my gosh, as a marriage therapist, if I could say, that is not something that needs to really be done.
That's interesting, because the thing that like is coming to my mind with all of this is I think of one thing that I've had to work on is, and it's such a dumb little thing, but at the same time it's not. Because I remember for years, and I feel like this was closer to when I was like end of high school, beginning of college age, I remember people would ask things like what my favorite songs were, my favorite artist, or my favorite movie, or anything like that, even favorite food. And
Yes.
I would immediately feel so like, vulnerable in a weird way where I felt like, well, I can't tell them what music I actually like because it's not like this popular
Totally.
mainstream thing. Or if I tell them I really like this, they might like
Absolutely,
write
Mac.
me and think something. Or again, even favorite foods, because I eat like a child, right? Like
Yes, you do. Mac and
I
cheese.
do. I love mac and cheese and I love chicken nuggets. And I used to not tell people that because I was so afraid that they would judge me or use that against me somehow, or think I was wrong or weird or not good enough or not cool enough. And so I would find myself saying things that weren't necessarily true, where I'd be like, well,
Yes.
I know other people like this artist,
Yes.
so I'm going to say that. Or this is usually people's like, in their top 5 favorite movies or whatever. So I'm just going to go with one of those because then there's no chance that I have to feel anything uncomfortable or have to explain myself or
Yeah.
feel weird about being just who I am.
Can I give you a
Right?
funny? It's so perfect. So we saw the Barbie movie together.
Yeah.
And did you like the Barbie movie, Mackie?
Like literally one of my favorite movies I've ever
Okay.
seen in my whole
I
life.
I loved it. And so what was so funny is I don't, for some reason, people are making their opinions of what I would think about it. So last week in sessions, there were 2 or 3 times where somebody said to me, hey, did you see the Barbie movie? And then I said, oh, I did. And they said, what'd you think? And I said, oh, no, I'm not falling for this one. I will confidently tell you my opinion, but I want
Uh-huh.
you to go first because, one of these guys was funny. He's so cool because he's a dad. He's got a great job, but we're working on emotional immaturity. And that emotional
Hmm.
maturity is like, well, yeah, I guess I kind of think what you think too, because then you'll like me. And we're trying to work on, oh, it's
Right.
okay to have that discomfort or tension. And he's a guy that, and he said, I actually kind of liked it. And he said it almost apologetically. And I just said, I loved it.
You
And he's
won't
like,
believe
okay,
this,
me
but
too. I loved it. Yeah. So,
yeah,
but then I had
yeah.
somebody else at one point say, well, I'm sure you didn't like the Barbie movie earlier in the week. And then I said, oh, well, tell me why. And then what was funny about that one is he didn't really have a lot to back it up. He just kind of assumed I wouldn't. And so then I said, oh, I loved it. And that's one of those things where when you look at everything as this opportunity to self-confront and grow, is then that's a huge part where, as a therapist, almost the homework of whether you are having an opportunity to express yourself or even if you're hearing other people have opinions, and then just check in with yourself and say, what do I think about that? And would I be afraid to express that? And if so, why?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of then sit with that discomfort and
Yeah.
figure out why am I feeling that way? Because I think like the beauty of being human is that we
Mm.
are all so different in every aspect, in the way that
Yeah.
we look, in our bodies, our sizes, our faces, but then also going deeper than that, our opinions and our values and the things we care about and the little, the food we like, the music we like.
Yeah.
That is like it would be so stupid if we were all exactly the same.
It really would.
It would be so dumb and so boring. And so the beauty of it is being yourself,
Yeah.
whoever that is, whatever that means.
I
And
am
it's like
Knuff.
exactly though. It's true though because it really who you are and all the opinions you have and all the things that you feel is so cool.
Yeah.
Even if it's not what you might think other people think is so cool. And it doesn't matter because the reality is like you are the one living in your brain and you are the one living in your body every second of every day.
Yeah.
And it sucks to not just get to be who you are and do what you like,
Yeah.
and say
Yeah.
what
And
you want to say.
this is where, again, marriage therapist and me I love giving the speech of we all show up into relationships, if we haven't done a lot of work, emotionally immature, and we're codependent, we're enmeshed. I do it with my hands, so for those on
Uh-huh.
YouTube, right? Codependent and enmeshed. And then but that's because we really want somebody to like us because we feel like we may never be liked. And so if somebody starts to like us, then we do kind of skip being who we are because we don't want that person to think that's bad or crazy. So if they say,
Right.
do you like Jane Austen movies? Then we kind of go, oh, you know what? I do. But on our side of ourselves, we're saying, I got to figure out what Jane Austen movies are. But,
Right.
she's
Doing a
cute.
little
So,
Google search real
yeah, right.
quick. Yeah.
So I'm sure I'm going to like him. And then all of a sudden, if he doesn't like him, he's like, oh, crap, I can't say that. So then he
Right.
says, like, yeah, I love those things. And if she's like, well, tell me why, tell me more, where it would be far more mature to say, I don't even know who this is, but I
Right.
would love to know more. Tell me why you like them. But we're so afraid of that. So then we're codependent, we're enmeshed, we get together, and then we start going through life and having experiences. So of course we're going to have different opinions and different thoughts because
Right.
we were raised different. We're different. I was going to say species, but we're different sexes and we're different, all these things.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
then if we can't then say, well, tell me how you feel and tell me more about that and be openly curious, then we're just getting into a relationship where we never are going to feel like we're ourselves, and we're going to start to just slowly die from the inside. And so,
Literally.
yeah, for real, right?
With that, I feel like, because I was saying this was something I've kind of been working on,
Mhm.
and within the last like year or two, I started just owning up to, like, if I hadn't seen a movie or if I hadn't
Yeah,
heard a song, because I remember on dates or in friendships or things like that, somebody would be like, "Oh, have you seen this movie?" And I would just be like, "Yeah," because
totally.
for whatever reason it would be too uncomfortable to admit,
Yeah,
or like I thought I wasn't cool enough. So I'd just be like, "Oh yeah," and then just let them talk about it. And again, just within the last like year or two, I finally was just like, okay, I can say no, and
yes,
I can admit that I haven't seen it or I don't like that. And it honestly just makes it better, and it opens up more conversation and more
yes,
opportunity. Because now I feel like if somebody's like, "Oh, have you seen this movie?" and I say, "No, I haven't," then, they might be like, "Oh my gosh, why? Like, I can't believe that." But then it leads to, "Okay, let's watch it," or "Let me tell you
yep,
about it." Or if I have seen it and I don't like it, then it's a conversation that we can have, and we can talk about why they liked it and I didn't, or whatever it is. And so it's like cool to have the differences and then to be
yeah.
able to talk about the things. It almost just brings more connection
It does.
rather
Well, and
than
I
just
don't want to be like
agreeing
overly
or whatever.
dramatic, but yeah, but if somebody really is going to say, and I have clients sometimes that say, well, I'm sure you've read the book, whatever. And I early in my days, I might kind of go like, oh, I've heard of that,
Right.
but
Yeah.
because I didn't want them to feel uncomfortable, but now it's absolutely oh, I haven't heard about it. And every now and again, you get somebody that says, oh, wow, I would have assumed you would have read that. And now I say, oh, I haven't, but tell me why you liked it or tell me more. If you're on a date with somebody and they're saying, oh, wow, I can't believe you haven't seen that. I almost want to say at that point, get the check. It is time to leave.
Exactly, though. That's the thing too. It's kind of a nice way to weed people out that you don't want around you or in your because the reactions they might have. Or if we're talking about the fact that I eat like a child again,
Right.
right? If I like mac and cheese and chicken nuggets and
And you wear the
Sprite and Pepsi.
bib and you like the little kid
Okay.
utensils and
Nope.
you like the sippy
No.
cup. And I mean, right, it's fine. And if they like, and if you say,
No.
oh, more Wawa, and they're like, what in the heck is that? I mean, right? Then they need to go.
No. No.
Okay.
Too far. Um no, but I mean, I guess, yeah, technically, if that, but no, I'm an adult.
Yes.
And I eat the food as if I'm an adult. It just happens to be food that maybe a 6-year-old would also eat.
Right. With your
Okay?
fingers. But I mean, that's fine.
No.
Okay. No,
But
you're right.
anyways, my
Yes.
whole point being, say I was dating somebody, if they didn't like me because of a food that I
Oh,
liked,
exactly.
why do I even want to be a part of that? And it's not just about the food, it's about all the other.
Okay, and then on that note, and this is where I think we talked about this back in the day, and I think it's so important is you and your career. You're doing really well, and people need to all come see you because you're good at it, and you talk to them in your chair and all those things. But had you been trying to navigate a relationship young, early, that's the stuff that I worry that if you would have felt like I need to devote more time to this relationship than the career, or if you would have needed to, if that person, heaven forbid, they would have said, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. And if you would have said, oh, okay, yeah, because I don't want to make this person upset. Oh, that breaks my heart because look at where
Right,
you're
and then
at.
gave
Now
up
you're
on
showing,
my
yeah,
dream.
totally.
Yeah. Which I think happens, and
It does. It happens a lot,
it's heartbreaking.
actually. I got an email from somebody that heard our episode on the virtual couch a couple of weeks ago, and and I felt
Mhm.
bad, but they just said, first, they were like, first up, I now regret the fact that I let people talk me out of going to cosmetology school. Yeah, but then they went on to say some really nice
Yeah.
things about the message that we told about the ways to parent the older kids. But that part alone, oh, I just felt for this person. I don't even know the person, but you could just tell in that email that they were talked out
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
It just sucks because, again, it is you and it is your life, and you are the one that has to do it and be here every second of every day. And so do what is good for you and fulfilling for you. And you can't let other people tell you that that's wrong or not good enough or whatever it is. And if they are telling you that, then either get rid of them, or there's conversations to be had
Yeah.
there,
Yeah. And they
and
could
there
be
is.
uncomfortable. They could be uncomfortable
Yeah. And
conversations. That's
so,
okay.
yeah, but it's worth, having those conversations.
Can I tell you a hot therapy take that I'm going to start talking about more
Please.
over on my stuff? is that I really
Please.
feel like this is a great example of I don't ever want somebody else to be in the way of someone else's dreams, like the parent. So the example I think of is, do you remember what you wanted to be when you were in high school? You went to like nerd camp and then you got like chosen for the STEM
That
stuff
was
and you
that was in middle school.
oh,
Thank
was
you.
it really? Okay. But
Yeah.
you want to be a marine biologist and work with penguins. And so that's the one where it would have been easy for a parent to say, oh, okay, you know, it's a pretty tough career. Not a lot of people get into it. But we would go to
Uh-huh.
the aquarium and we would look at the penguins and we were saying, absolutely, Mackie. And you did remember you went to some STEM thing.
I did go to a nerd camp. I
Yeah. But
did.
I love the fact though that if a parent just says, yeah, that's not really something that you're going to be good at down the road, then that's their issue. And it breaks my heart that that's where I don't want anyone to ever get in the way of someone else. Let that person go to nerd camp and discover that maybe that isn't what they want to do when they got lost at
Right.
all the math talk, theoretically.
Yeah, that totally didn't happen.
No.
But if it did,
Yeah.
'cause it just shouldn't be a thing that other people are allowed to get in the way of other people's dreams.
No.
Because I think a lot of people do end up missing out on things that they wanted, or always having that what if throughout their whole life of just what if I would have done that, that
Yeah.
thing that I really wanted to do. And then they kind of have to deal with that discomfort forever,
Yeah.
like their whole life, when the reality is, in most situations, there is a way to do the thing you want to do,
Yeah. Or at least
in
go down
some
that
way.
path and
And
you may find that, okay, now that leads to this and this leads to this and this leads to that, which is a
yeah,
great journey too.
and maybe you end up changing your mind and all the things, but it's like there is a way to go for it in some sense.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people end up missing out on that because of other people, or because of their, or even just them thinking about it. So I don't know if you remember when I decided to drop out of college and go to cosmetology school,
Mm-hmm.
I was so scared to bring it up to you guys,
I know, it's
which
so
you had
funny.
never given me any reason, right? Because it's like you'd never given me any reason to
No.
think that you would think that that was stupid or not a good idea or anything like that. But I, in my head, put together all these things I had maybe heard from other people, or, even my own self doubt or whatever it was, and then twisted that into going, well, they're going to think this is stupid. So
Yeah.
I can't throw it out there. I can't try this. And it's like I almost let my own incorrect thoughts there
Wow.
stop me from even suggesting, which
Yeah.
is so sad. But I think it is when we do get stuck in this like self-image type of thing where we don't have the confidence in ourselves, it is so easy to then let things like that take over and stop us from
Yeah.
saying what we want or reaching for what we want, which sucks.
It does.
But I
It
think it
does.
happens.
Yeah. Because it's funny now to look back on that too, because I think when you came to tell us, I in my mind, I make the joke of you were saying, hey guys, I think I want to. And in my mind, I'm thinking, go to cosmetology school? Okay, it's about time. But then we had to let you get it out and be very dramatic. I don't know. And then we were saying, okay,
Yeah,
sounds good.
oh, are you sure you
You're going
want
to
to
love
do
it. You're going to be great.
that? And it's been great. And so it's kind of just a bummer that we let our self-doubt get in the way so much. And then that circles all the way back to kind of what we were talking about at the beginning, where we do feel held back, based off of our body image or our appearance. And so I do have another potentially kind of comfy, but gets you thinking
Okay.
concept thing here. Okay, so picture that you've made it to the end of your life and somebody hands you a clipboard with all your statistics on it, of how you spent this little bit of time we have on this earth. Can you imagine what it would feel like to see the numbers on there and see that you spent more time worrying about your body or your appearance or anything like that than you did just living your life?
Oh, that one hits.
Because I think I would be so embarrassed to see the numbers
Yeah.
of like what percentage of time I've spent worrying about my body or trying to change my body or thinking about my body, whether it's like counting calories or overexerting myself or just sitting there and being upset about it or eating because I'm upset, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I cannot even imagine what that would feel like to actually be handed that and go, yeah, you just spent all of that time and all of
Oh,
that opportunity you had to live an incredible life just thinking about your body.
yeah.
And I just can't even imagine what that would feel like. It's made me kind of put things in perspective a little bit where, the size of my jeans does not matter,
Hmm.
right? the size of your
Uh,
jeans doesn't matter.
no, not at
It
all.
really
Because
doesn't.
I always thought they would get smaller the older I got, and they're not, and it's okay.
And it's okay because I was actually talking with one of my clients about this the other day, and we were just it's like, have you ever seen a person and gone, I bet she's wearing a size 12?
No, I don't know what your sizes really mean, and I've never done it with a guy either.
Exactly. Because nobody
Yeah,
cares. Nobody
yeah,
cares. And
yeah.
it doesn't matter. And nobody is looking at you and going, I bet that's like this size or that's this, whatever. Nobody cares. If anything, they're
No,
looking at you and they're going, she looks good in those jeans.
yeah,
Like that's the reality of it. How much life are we missing out on because of how overwhelmed we get by the discomfort of how we feel about ourselves?
yeah.
Um,
Well, and I like what you're
because
saying, Mackie. I think it's hard too that if you are now hearing this, because this data, this question is another one that kind of hurts my head a little bit in a good
uh,
way. That if people are saying, "Oh my gosh, I've wasted so much time doing that," then this is the point where all you can do is accept that you didn't know what you didn't know, and now when you catch yourself doing that, bless your brain's little pink squishy heart, it means well, but now I need to give it some grace and then just be more present and do and all those things. So that, because that one's heavy. That's a great question.
So I just threw together a little list that we can just run through of things that I've either learned in therapy, just things that can help with your body image or self love. So, number one, practice self compassion, giving yourself grace, like you were saying, and treating yourself kindly, treating yourself like you would somebody else that you love. Because if you think of somebody that you love, like whether it's your best friend or a family member, anyone that is important to you, would you stop loving them because they gained weight or lost weight or
Hmm.
changed their haircut? It's like that would not affect the love that you have for them or the way that you feel about them. And if it does, then maybe you need to, look inward and
Yeah.
maybe work on some things there.
Yeah.
But I think when we love somebody, the way that they look doesn't matter. And when their looks change, it doesn't matter. And so taking that and flipping it onto yourself, you should still get to love yourself regardless of what you look like.
Can I tell you it's the cheesiest, most hack therapy bits, but it works every time,
Uh-huh.
most every time, is when I will say, "Hey, what would you tell somebody that's coming to you with this?" And almost inevitably the person
Yes.
says, "Well, I would tell them that it's not so bad and
Hey,
you're
or
going to
it's
be
not that
okay."
big of a
Right.
deal. Or
Yeah. And
yeah,
it's, so it is a
great.
little
Or
bit of a, yeah, and it works. And then I just think in the mental health world, I think we've talked about this on my show, but when people start with the what's wrong with me and I'm broken, but it's nothing, you're not broken, you're human, and you have the thoughts and feelings and emotions you do because you are the only version of you that's ever been on the face of the earth. And based on all your experiences, your nature and your birth order and your DNA and abandonment, rejection and hopes and dreams and fears and everything makes you who you are. So check it out. This is what I think and this is how I feel. And I think that leads to that grace, because we so often start with
yes,
what's wrong with me and I am broken and I shouldn't think these things. And that's where, oh my gosh, that stuff just, that's the breaks my heart.
yes. But yeah, all circles back to give yourself grace. Be nicer to yourself,
Yeah.
even though it's hard.
Yeah.
Then second thing, affirmations. They feel silly sometimes, but say
Yeah.
the nice things out loud, and then going with that, challenging negative thoughts, kind of rethinking them. My therapist would have me write down a negative thought I have, and then right there, flip it and turn it
Mm-hmm.
into something else that was a little bit more realistic and positive. So the second that negative thought enters your brain, you catch it and then you go, okay, why am I thinking that? And then turn it. And so I think a lot of the things that we would talk about was, is my things I felt about my body. And so it'd be
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, say the thought comes in my head, I don't look good or anything like that. Then I would stop that thought right there. And then my therapist would be like, okay, tell me something that's true and good about your body. And it'd be like, okay, maybe I don't love the way that I look right now, but my body is so strong and it has carried me this far and I'm healthy because your brain starts to believe the things you tell it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
all that. So it's like just catching those thoughts and rewriting them a little bit as they come. And so stop the thoughts, rework them rather than just shoving them away or
Yeah.
ruminating on the
Yeah.
negative
For
thought.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next thing, surrounding yourself with positivity in the sense that if there's somebody in your life that is constantly making you feel worse about yourself, you're allowed to distance yourself from that person, or you're allowed to confront and
Mhm.
have conversations that need to be had. But if somebody is making you feel awful about yourself, maybe don't don't lean
Well,
into
Mac,
that.
No, and to get a little deep on that one, and we could do a whole episode on this in the future, but the unfortunate part is people get kind of locked into those relationships because
Mhm.
that is the role that maybe you play as the, I call it in my world, the pathologically kind person, that then that person, then they may be more emotionally immature and they may make themselves feel better by putting you down, as crazy as that sounds, because if you're the person that's being put down, that isn't the way you think. So you're assuming then that they must be having a bad day, or, you know what, I can let this go. But if it's a continual pattern, then the sad part is when you start to then put up a boundary or you start to step away from the relationship, it's not like they will go, oh, cool, my bad. You know, then they're going to say, wait, what, you abandon me now? You think you're better than me? Or, and they start to push more buttons. And I think that that's what can be one of the most difficult things when you start to step into your own and be more from this place of acceptance and growth. And I am enough and I'm lovable, but I am enough. But then at those points, the people that the relationships that you may be in are they've kind of evolved to a certain place where we play different roles in the relationship, and so it can be hard to get out of that role, especially when you are that kind person. So that's why I think everything that you're talking about today is so important, because it's going to start from deep within, and then by the
Mhm.
time you're ready to start to express yourself, we hope that people are going to throw a party and say yay. But if you've been their whipping post or their emotional support animal, so to speak, then they need you to take that role again, and they may make you feel bad about stepping into your own or finding yourself. So I love that you brought that up, because that can be really
Right.
difficult.
But that is a them thing and it's not a you
Yep,
thing. And
totally.
you're
Well
still allowed
said.
to then continue that,
Yeah,
that growth
yeah.
and that self discovery there. And that actually goes into my next point, which is just to celebrate the little tiny victories
Mm-hmm.
and to give yourself credit, because I think little things, it's so hard to just not even acknowledge that and not give ourselves credit. But you're allowed to, and you're allowed to be proud of yourself and excited for the little things that you are improving. Or even if you have a moment where you're like, oh, you know what, I do look good today, and you maybe
Yeah.
don't think that very often, that is such a win. Acknowledge that and feel that, and be proud of yourself. Okay, next, this one is something I'm trying to do a lot, but
Okay.
focusing on health rather than appearance,
Yeah.
especially like if you are on a fitness journey of any sort, rather than stressing about specific measurements or the number on the scale or comparing yourself to other people that are very fit or anything like that, to focus more on just being healthy and to find exercises that make you feel good. Like for me
Mm-hmm.
right now, I go on a lot of walks, and
Yeah.
it's not, doesn't burn the most calories, doesn't build any crazy muscle, but it's good for my body and it's
Yeah.
good for my mind. It makes me feel good. Find the activities and the things that make you feel good, because it is about being healthy, not
Mm.
being perfect.
Yeah.
And then with that, this concept of body neutrality, which is just to practice viewing your body more neutrally and just as though your body is a vehicle that allows you to experience life, and to think of it that way and not as the biggest part of you. Because as amazing as it is just kind of the vessel that carries you through. And last thing I have on my list, another thing I learned from therapy that I told you about that is kind of silly to hear at first, but
Oh, I know where you're
um,
going. This is good.
it's this concept of naked time.
Naked time.
Naked time. And not in a weird or creepy
No,
or
it's not at all.
weird way at all, but it's just this concept of existing in your body as it is and working on being comfortable with it. And so my therapist told me that every time after I get out of the shower or whatever, instead of just hurrying and getting clothes on and avoiding every meal, is to just be for a minute, kind of walk around, be naked for a second, and to almost get used to your body in a sense, but then be comfortable with it, because the more comfortable you are, the more you're able to then just kind of go, you know what, I appreciate this thing and I love this thing and I feel okay just being in my body, which then leads to feeling good about being in your body, and
It
just
does.
does it weirdly helps. I know it sounds weird, but
No, Mackie, this is funny. I mean, I've been doing that myself because it was always just hurry up and quick change
yeah,
and
don't look
almost
in the
like
mirror
hide.
and don't
Yeah,
need it.
yeah, and it's been funny. Yeah, that's been pretty liberating.
Yeah, liberating it is, and it weirdly helps a lot. So I encourage you
Yeah,
to
close the blinds. I mean, just a little
yeah,
pointer.
yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
that. Yeah, don't just parade around the streets or
No,
anything like
no,
that.
that's yeah. I
I'm
wouldn't do that.
talking maybe you're just in your bathroom or you're in your
Sure.
apartment or whatever,
Yeah.
but to just be in your body and be okay with it and not be judging it. That was one thing too. My therapist, she was like, this is not time for you to sit there and scrutinize every part of, you're just being, and any thoughts you're going to have, they just have to be good. They just have to be like grateful ones of
Yes.
just My body's good. My body's strong.
Yeah.
Those types of thoughts. So, those are just a few things that I've been working on myself that I feel like do kind of help in that journey of body image, self discovery, self love, all of that. And I think just in my experience so far, I feel like self love is a lifelong journey. It's not just a you reach a certain point and you're good to go for the rest of your life, because our bodies change and life changes. It's not linear, so to speak, but it is a journey that is there, and self love is achievable and within reach if you just kind of take the steps there
Yeah.
to be and to appreciate your body and to practice being comfortable with the thought that there is more to you than just what you look like. And I've said this a few times, but your worth doesn't come from the size of your jeans. The way that you look has nothing to do with your value or what you deserve or what makes you wanted or lovable. The number on the scale means nothing, especially when it comes to who you are. You are you, period. Exactly as you are. Whatever size your body is, whatever you look like, you are you. And that's beautiful and that's great. And so this is kind of your gentle, loving nudge to wear the swimsuit or go on the date or get the haircut or wear the outfit to just live the life that you want to live and not give insecurity the power to rule your life in any way. Like anyone listening, I don't even have to see you to be able to confidently tell you that you look great and you are
Mm-hmm.
deserving of all the good things and you are loved right now exactly as you are. And again, that your body really is the least interesting thing about you. As cool as it is, as cool as bodies are and all that, it really is the least interesting thing about you. So just be nice to it, take care of it, show it love, but don't let it stop you from doing what you want to do or being who you want to be.
You
Um,
are enough, Matt.
yes, exactly. You are enough. So after you listen to this, go look in the mirror and tell yourself how much you love yourself and maybe have some naked time later. I don't know, whatever you got to do. But, I encourage you to start the self love journey if you haven't, because it is a good one. Okay. Do you have any other thoughts, Tony guy?
No, that was honestly that was fun. Is I thought episode 1 kind of we had reached our peak, but I felt like today, I
Maybe
loved
we
it.
can keep it going.
Yeah, I think so, and yeah, because I that was really easy to talk about, and I appreciate the work
Yeah.
that you did, and that we went on some tangents here today that I really was grateful for, because there's
Yeah.
some things that I've been kicking around and as a therapist that I think we were able to touch on today too. So I appreciate all the work you're doing, Mac.
Amazing.
Okay, so there will be
Okay.
an episode 3, whether you invite me or not is to be seen.
Stop.
Kind of take it from there.
But yes, this is all we have for you today. Thank you for feeling some feelings with us. This has been the second episode of The Mind, the Mirror, and Me. You can find me on Instagram at Beauty by Mackie, and you can find you at
Tony Overbay _ LMFT.
Perfect. Okay, thanks so much for joining us, and we will talk again soon. Bye.